What's up, everyone? Jeremy Gerard from Mythic Customs here with one of my short customizing tutorial videos. As you can see in front of me, today's video, we're going to do a paint tutorial. I'm going to show you specifically how I recently painted a part to match the upcoming Mythic Legions Tibius figure. So Tibius is a figure that was actually released originally in the Mythic Legions 1.0 Kickstarter wave, but made a reappearance in the Mythic Legions All-Stars 4 wave. That is a set that is going to be shipping very, very soon, which means fans are going to start having it in hand. And if you're a customizer, that means that you may want to paint some parts to match that figure. So I thought today I would take you through how I recently painted a legionshop.com night helmet to match Tibius. Now, I'm going to show you specifically on this one part. However, what I'm showing you is not totally specific to this part. If you have another kind of knight helmet that you want to match to the Tibius armor, you could certainly use this step-by-step process to match that as well, and just make slight changes wherever necessary for that particular piece. However, the one we're going to look at today is from Legion Shop. So let me show you exactly what we're going for here. This is the figure that we're trying to paint. So this is a 1.0 Tibius figure, but the All-Stars releases are meant to be, pretty much the same decos. So the one that's going to be coming out soon is going to look like this. This particular helmet was one that I designed recently, working with my friend Walter DeMarco of Mass Customs to actually digitally sculpt this, and Len LaGuardia of Wolf King Customs to actually print it. So it was sculpted by Walter, it was printed by Len, and it's going to be available at legionshop.com. Now I know that's kind of confusing, but it's evidence of how Legion Shop works, bringing lots of different artists together to create these super cool things. Just to make it easy on you, if you see this and you're like, I want one for myself, there you go. Legionshop.com is where these are going to be available, and they will be available both unpainted if you want to follow these steps and make one for yourself, or want to paint it differently for yourself for a different figure. They will also be available fully painted if you don't want to follow these steps and you would just rather pop it on a Tibius and make a cool custom like you see here. So let's look at this. I'll zoom in a little bit. You can see that this helmet, it's definitely got some dents and some scuffs on it. We actually did two different versions of this sculpture. There's one that's a little bit cleaner that works really, really well with like a Sir Owain figure, another one of the figures from All-Stars 4, or other knights. You could put this on a Templar Knight Legion builder or whatever, and it would look really, really good. However, if you want to use this on a figure that's got a little more texture and wear, like a skeleton or an orc or even a goblin, we wanted to do one that wasn't so clean, that actually has some dents and some texture and some scuffing in the sculpture itself. That's the one you see here, and that's what we're going to paint. Now, the great thing about the Tibius figure is it's got silver armor, but it's dirty. There's a lot of brown dirt on it. There's some scuffing and everything. And because of that haphazard, dirty type application that you would expect from a skeleton wearing armor, right? Because of that, this becomes a really good project for early customizers. If you've been customizing for a while, it's still cool and it looks really, really neat, I think. However, if you're looking to get started, this is a great project to do so for a few reasons. Number one, the Tibius figure actually has a few different colors of silver on it. So if your paint match is not perfect, it's not like it's going to look wildly out of place. I mean, after all, this is a skeleton wearing some armor. I think we can agree that the armor doesn't have to match perfectly. I'm going to give you a pretty good match through my tutorial today, but if it's not perfect, you can still get away with it. Number two, because it's dirty armor and there's some dirt, there's a high level of kind of flexibility in how clean your paints need to be. They frankly don't need to be super clean. Unlike, say, that Sir Owain figure that's got really nice crisp lines, the Tibius figure can have some dirt. You can see on this helmet that I have on screen right now, I'm going to paint some dirt right onto this. So you're going to see that it is not perfect. The lines are not perfect. As a new customizer, that is really, really helpful. Okay, so very, very cool. let's show you what we got here. I actually have the completed figure that we're going for here. This is the Tibius figure with that helmet on him. This is what we're going to paint today. And I've got the different stages. So what's going to happen is when you get this, if you buy this unpainted, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get this gray resin printed piece. This is what you're going to be working with. This is how you're going to paint this. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get this and you're going to give it a coat of black spray paint. I've done other videos about base coating, base painting different customs. I like to use a Krylon flat black spray paint. That's what you're going to do. You're going to spray paint it here. And actually, I've got another graphic that I'll bring up that I think will be helpful for you to see. These are the 4 essential stages that we're going to go through today. So you can see that first photo here, that is the black spray paint base layer. What you want to do is some light coats, multiple light coats. You don't want to hit it really super heavy so it's wet and it drips, especially with this sculpture. All of those holes in the face, if you go too heavy, what's going to happen is the paint's going to pool up in those holes and you're going to lose that effect that you want, where it's totally like a bunch of holes that are supposed to be black inside because you're not seeing inside the helmet. A bunch of light coats of paint, you're going to have to flip the helmet over and stuff. Just take your time, be patient. Remember, customizing requires patience. So spray it with a couple light coats. The next thing you're going to do, and I'm going to actually do all of this live in a few moments. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to paint it with some Vallejo light gray paint. So that Vallejo light gray is what you see on that second shot there. Now, super, super simple, because this is not meant to be super, super clean. A nice base coat. I do a little bit of light brushing on that gray just to get some coverage. But if there's a little bit of stuff uncovered, that's not a problem at all. You're going to see that in a moment. The third step here is the silver that I dry brush on. So that is a trick that I learned a while ago that's super helpful. I do a base coat of a color close to the armor that I'm going for. Now, the Tibius armor has metallic sheen, but instead of just painting right on with a metallic, I start with a flat base coat that's close to the color. That's what you see in that second helmet. Then I dry brush on the metallic, and I find it gives you a much better finish. Working with metallics and just trying to paint them right on the black, unless you're going for just like some dry brush scuffing, I don't find to work really, really well. However, this 2-step process works much better. And then the last helmet there is the dirty one. That's where I'm going to dry brush on some brown, and I'm also going to use a little bit of like a goldish brass color to paint some of the rivets on the helmet for that final detail. Very cool. So let's take it through. Let's do it here. So I've got my black base coat. That's the first step that I do here. So what I'm going to do is a light gray will work. The one that I find is Vallejo 990 light gray. That's the one that I'm going to use today. Shake it up. Put a little bit in my paint tray. Don't need very, very much. I'm only doing one helmet right now. These are the brushes I like to use. These are some nice fresh brushes, some nice Testors brushes. So I like these because they have that flat tip. I really, really like that flat tip when I'm dry brushing. This particular set that I use all the time comes with 3 brushes, a size 10, a size 8, and then a much smaller size 2. So I'm going to use this first. I'm going to dip my brush in. See, I dipped it in the brush there, and then dry brushing, I'm going to dry it off here. Even though I'm going for full coverage, I don't want to glop it on, once again, because of those holes. If I glop it on, the holes are going to start to get filled, and I want those holes. I don't want any paint to get in those holes. So what I do, I dry it off a little bit, and I'm going to start on the back of the helmet here. So by starting on the back of the helmet here, I get a little bit of that paint off the brush, and then I can move to the front. And I just lightly go over that. Just going to lightly go over it. And I know it's hard to see as I do it. As I do it, you can see it builds the paint up. Okay, that's the great thing with dry brushing is you kind of build the paint up a little bit at a time. Don't go heavy, just lightly brush that on. Lightly brush it, full coverage. Doesn't take long to do this step. And like I said, if you've got a little bit of area that's got kind of a little bit of the black bleeding through, that may look cool too. So this is something where you got a degree of what you think looks good. You know, this is your custom. You are painting this for yourself. So you can take the tips that I offer and kind of riff on them for your own style and what you are happy with. But ultimately, when it's done, it's going to look similar to that. Okay? So that's step number one. I paint it like that. Now, step number two, and I'm going to actually use the one that I painted previously that's already dry. Step number two is to get that silver color. Now, I'm sure you can find, or some people can find, a silver right out of the bottle that's a match for Tibius. What I do is mix two different paints together. So I use a couple different Craft Smart metallic paints. These are the inexpensive craft store paints. I get these at Michael. So I'm using Craft Smart Tin, and I'm using Craft Smart Bright Silver. And I'm pretty much going to match them. I'm pretty much going to combine them in equal scale here, equal amounts, I should say. I find the tin is a little too dark. I find the bright silver is a little too light. So by combining them together, I like what I get. So shake it first, just a little bit there, and then shake the bright silver. Similarly, a little bit there. Okay, I'm going to take a fresh brush, and I'm going to mix those two together. And again, there's a lot of different silvers on Tibius. When you get Tibius, before you start this project, take a few minutes and look at the figure. Really hold the figure in your hands. Look at the different colors. You're going to see there's a few different colors there. There's a margin of error. So what I'm going to do, just like what I just did, is with a little bit of that mixed silver paint, I'm going to start dry brushing. Just going to start putting that. And you're going to see that that flat gray starts to get this nice metallic sheen to it. Get it covered all over, and a little bit goes a long way. I've only dipped my brush once, and what I need totally is covering it. Look at that. Totally covered. That's what I need here. You know, you can match it. You can put it up to the figure. Make sure that it looks effective as you want. But super, super easy. Again, when you're dry brushing the helmet, be extra careful around the face. You don't want to get too much paint in any one of those holes because it'll clog that hole up and it will not be specifically what you're looking for. Okay. Next step, and one of my favorites here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take that fully silver helmet, and again, this is one I did previously that's nice and dry now, and you're going to paint some of that brown kind of dirt on. This is a great fun piece. Any brown will do, kind of medium brown. I'm using Vallejo 846 mahogany brown only because it's one that I had available. So I'm going to put some of this in the paint tray. And of course, I'm out of that paint. It looks like I grabbed the wrong one. So dip a little bit of paint in there, no problem. Roll with the flow, right? Roll with the punches. Everything's good. Okay, so now I'm going to take a brush, and I'm just going to use the brush I just did for the silver. That's fine. I'm just going to dry that off here. Now, dip it in the brown and very, very much dry it off. You want this to be a very, very dry brush, because this is a part where a little also goes a long way. What you're going to do is just lightly start brushing on that brown. One of the things I love about any part like this that's got holes, when you dry brush like muck and brown and stuff over it, it doesn't get in the holes. But if you like kind of brush downward, it almost looks like the dirt's coming out of the holes. I love, love, love doing that. So again, just a little bit. And if you go too heavy, if you go, oh, that's too heavy, just take your finger and just rub. Just rub on that. The dry brushing on this brown, it allows you to do that because you can just smudge, because this is supposed to be just like dirt, right? So you can absolutely smudge that. Not a problem at all. And that's all I'm doing here. Just a little bit of brown. Remember, less is more. If you look at the Tibius, he's not totally covered in brown, but just pick your spots. I like, when I paint it personally on the left-hand side of the visor, I like to concentrate there and go a little bit darker in that area, go over it a few times just to get a little more concentration there, because I like there to be that one kind of really dirtier area. Okay, there you go. Now, while I have the brown out, I am going to do one more thing. I'm going to grab another brush. This is a really small brush, really fine tip brush. On the helmet, there's some little straps around the neck, okay? Some little belt straps. Super, super simple. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the brown, just dip that little fine tip brown in here, and I'm going to paint those straps. And you barely have to touch the paint. They're such small areas that just touching the brush to that area will allow you to paint those little straps. So see, and it's a little tough to see, it's not going to zoom in, but that strap that's on the side there, that's what I just painted. Really simple, really small little pieces. Very good. Now the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to dry off this brown brush that I just used. The last thing is, if you notice, there's a bunch of like rivets and stuff. There's the sides of the visor, those two little side pieces, and there's a bunch of rivets that go up and down. So if I look at the Tibius figure, he's got a little bit of detail like on his armor, a little bit of goldish or brass type color. So I'm going to add that to the helmet here just to give it a little bit of something extra. A gold would be fine. I'm actually using Vallejo 801 brass. That's the one that I've chosen to use for this. Let's see if that focuses there. No, it's going to focus on me, but it is brass. That's the one. That's the one. There we go, that we're using. 801 brass. So I'm going to use that here. A little bit of paint. Now, when you do this, all those rivets are raised. So really all you need to do is dip the tip of this pen in and just kind of touch those little pieces. Just by touching those raised areas, you'll be able to actually get them painted. And I'm going to take my glasses off for this part, because when I actually paint close up, I take my glasses off. So all I'm doing here is just touching this to those little pieces. And I'm going to do it close up here. A little touch will get that paint where it needs to go. Boop. And you can see what I just painted there, those little rivets on the side of the helmet. Now I'm just using this on my finger. I know a lot of people, a lot of customizers, they use like chopsticks with a little blue tack, and they actually put the parts on those little chopsticks and then put it in some foam to hold it. That's actually a really good idea. That's more effective than what I'm doing, but I started doing it this way, so I'm just kind of used to using my hands as opposed to I usually do put gloves on too, but today I forgot the gloves before I started recording. There's some little rivets along the back, so you can even paint those if you want. Again, this is your custom, so you can do what you want, but that is the process that I use. Now, this helmet, and again, I had all 4 steps along the way, but this helmet is pretty much the final helmet that I'm going for here. And this is one that I painted previously for promotional purposes, and this is the one that I just painted right now. So again, 4-step process. Let me bring that shot up again so you can see. Take the unpainted resin piece, give it a black coat of spray paint. That's step number 1. Step number 2, I use the Vallejo light gray. I brush that on lightly to get that full coverage, to get that light gray base layer. Step number 3, I painted that mix of the metallic tin and the metallic bright silver. By dry brushing that on top, I was able to get that metallic coverage that I was going for. And then finally, the last step that we just did, I used the brown to dry brush some of that grime and dirt on. And then I used a little bit of brass. Oh, I also used the brown to paint the straps on the sides. But then I used some metallic brass to paint those rivets to give it a little final detail. And that's it. A couple steps, but if you take your time and you wait for it to dry between each phase, you'll be able to have your paint match for Tibius. And again, you can use this on other helmets as well if you want to match that Tibius armor. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you can use this tutorial to do some of your own customs. If you enjoy videos like this, certainly give it a like. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. I'd love to see those comments, and I do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. And if you're not subscribed to the channel already and you want to be notified when videos like this go live, please consider subscribing. Until next time, I can't wait to see what you make.